Hey, everybody, looks like we are live. If we can double check and have people just write hello in the chat room. We got Brian Pham, Marco, Kevin Lee, Han, Daniel Chia, Teresa, perfect. We're basically rolling. I see Gore, Stan, Susan, happy Saturday, good morning. It's very early for me. I just rolled out of bed. But it looks like Min got up early, looking good with that. You got a haircut.
I did. Can't really say how I got it. It's kind of like those PPP loans that are just like super hard to get, and everyone's like holding it close to their chest. Yeah, where's your Asian Hustle Network shirt?
All right. Well, we're going to give everyone a few minutes to log in as they're rolling out of bed as well, and I'm going to go change my shirt and have Min tell a few jokes while I'm away.
Okay. I guess I'll just give like an intro on me while Eric is changing his shirt. I work on a food investment company with two former founders of Caviar. We had initially started in the franchise space, owning Halal Guys in Seattle and BonChon in San Jose. And then we kind of pivoted away and realized that there's a financing gap in small business restaurant financing. So we instead kind of went a different direction about 3 years ago, where we invest into small restaurants and try to help them make them become bigger. And it's because like if you have like 15, 20 restaurants, like you could go to a bank, you could go to like alternative lenders, you could raise equity. There's a lot of different ways you could raise money. But if you have less than 5, not only like are you not prepared to take that kind of money and kind of like scale a company to that level, but there's just like not a lot of options because people think restaurants at that size are too risky. So we decided to kind of like tackle it, try to build some like pretty cool brands, Rooster Rice, Bamboo Asia, and it's kind of like where we were. And everything was kind of humming along up until about like 6 weeks ago. So happy to kind of like, like have this talk and like, living and breathing it every single day, like a lot of the restaurateurs that are attending here. So, yeah. So I just gave an intro while you're changing your shirt. Yeah. Eric, I think you're on mute.
I told you to tell some jokes, but you just talked about your background, or?
Yeah. I don't have many jokes. Yeah.
No worries at all. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. We've had probably about 20 more people join in into the live stream just a few minutes ago. So I wanted to say good morning, everybody. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. I know it's a struggle, at least for me, to be able to roll out of bed, especially on a Saturday during this time. So good morning, everybody. So what I wanted to do is roll out the agenda for you guys as well. We have Min Park here today to do a live question and answer and whole AMA about the future of the food industry regarding COVID-19. And what we want to do is provide you guys an opportunity to ask questions to Min, who has an extensive experience within the restaurant industry. So if you guys pop in over to the question button within Livestorm, you guys can start popping questions in, and then I will make sure to go through them and prompt as well. So I'm really glad that you guys are all here. And then about halfway in, around 30 minutes in, I'm going to announce the winner for the NOM NOM Bond, which I will have Min explain in a minute. And then as a thank you guys for joining us on this morning's webinar. So love to just say good morning, everybody, again. And I will have Min basically, since you already introduced yourself, give a quick introduction for people who just joined us, and then explain what the NOM NOM Bond is, and then I will start shooting off some questions as we wait for more questions to roll in.
Yeah, sure. So just another quick overview. We invest in restaurants. We take a various role depending on what the concept is. So it goes like as high level as being the CFO of Rooster Rice and being really in the weeds operationally. And then like in other ones, just being a passive investor. And then the kind of in between where we're also trying to raise capital from a syndication and really kind of propel the restaurant industry with a new set of investors. So, let's be honest, right? I mean, restaurants and the world in general, like we're in San Francisco, but we're about like 5 or 6 weeks into shelter in place. Completely different world than it was back then. We actually have a 50,000 member AHN video that Brian, Maggie, Drex, Sean, and Trisha and Eric were all on. We're going to be shooting it at one of our restaurants, but so no alarms. We're practicing the social distancing today. We shot it at, like before this was happening, but completely different world, right? And I think that it is a position for all small business owners, including restaurants. But I think one thing is really good is like, when things are humming along, we're all just kind of like focused in our tunnel vision and like kind of operating at our own levels. And the NOM NOM Bond was something that we wanted to try out with boba guys. Andrew has been great for the small business community. Hanson Lee, who owns like Kren Group, Vita Bowl, Humphrey Slocum, and then Jim Tsai, who invests in Birdsong, Manila Bowl. And we wanted to come together in San Francisco, at least, to like form a community where we could kind of help all 4 of our brands and to have the consumers feel like they're a part of helping to save us. And we're very appreciative of everyone that's participated in the NOM NOM Bond so far. So the way it works is it's a 20% discount to all 4 concepts. And, you'll be supporting all 4. I think a common question is like, hey, what if I only want to do like 2 out of the 4? We're really, going to steadily say like it has to be all 4 because that's the type of environment we want food and beverage to have in San Francisco going forward, to be united and helping each other out. So, Eric is throwing a contest and we're going to give a NOM NOM Bond to someone that wins here.
Thank you for the explanation. So what we're going to do is basically announce the winner of the NOM NOM Bond through a random raffle. And I decided to as to incentivize people who are on the stream. Obviously, you guys are on the stream because you want to learn more about the food industry, whether you're a consumer or restaurant owner, all they like. And the idea is hopefully we'll do a random drawing, and the person who wins is actually still in the chat room to claim they're winning. I'm going to go through 3 names. So if nobody wins the NOM NOM Bond, who's actually in the live stream, then we'll default to the next winner who may not be participating today. So we already have a few questions rolling in. So I want to remind you guys, if you have questions about the restaurant industry, I'm going to be shooting them off. So we're going to start with the first question here from Adrian Lin to you, Min. Which strategies have you seen? Actually, let me pause. I'm going to introduce myself because I realize I haven't done so just yet. For you guys who don't know me, my name is Eric Y. Chen. I'm one of the Facebook moderators within Asian Hustle Network. Just here to help build out the community, host events like this, and help out the awesome team and try to encourage business people here. So thank you guys for joining. All right, so going back to Adrian's question.
Oh, Eric, I think it actually starts from the bottom. So
all right, let's go from the bottom. Han's question: with margins on restaurants are already thin before COVID-19, what will the climate be post-corona? Which is basically the topic for today. The second question is, will the future restaurant founders have to have a pandemic /fund? How many months should it cover basic operations?
Yeah, I mean, I think the like general rule in personal finance is you got to have 3 months of living expenses. And it's so funny because businesses don't adhere to the same like basic principles, but only have a strong balance sheet, especially in the restaurant industry, because understand coronavirus is happening and like that's shutting like everyone down. But what if like, construction opens up like right in front of your store? What if there's kind of like a natural disaster that happens? There are a lot of different things that could have happened that would have the restaurants or have small businesses shut down. So I just think like any business needs to like think about balance sheet a little bit more. I think like even in the Bay Area, we're just so hyper focused on growth and the P&L and like top line revenue that a lot of times we forget about like we need to have like a safety net. I think the second part of that question is about the margins being very thin. I totally agree. The restaurant margin profile sometimes just doesn't really make sense, because if you just think about like how many steps it takes to get to a meal to someone's like, like a table in normal times, the amount of farmers, the distributors, the transportation, the packaging, all of those people don't think about. I think the industry itself just needs to make a call, and we need to like kind of like again like unify together. If you want healthy, good, skillfully made like food, you're gonna need to kind of like also pay like the appropriate margin in this time. And then there's fast food, right? I mean, I think that's kind of what drove pricing down. So restaurant margins 20 years ago, 15-20%, like a software company. It's like insane. And like as time went on, there were like all these machines and like ways to cut costs on the ingredients and labor. Food that kind of drove down the pricing of restaurants and margins overall. So I'm a big believer. I think we should just pay for, like what we were getting. And at the same time, like if we do that, then restaurant like labor environment will improve also, because people can adequately get paid for what they need to be paid. Okay, cool. So next one, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, Min, your audio quality has a little bit of kind of like a tapping buzz. I don't know if you can adjust something within the mic as I pull up the next question for you.
Okay.
All right. We got a question from Gore Sung. He's the owner of the Brew Coop in San Francisco. His question is, with regards to employees, are you coming across any trouble getting employees to actually come to work, given there's a $600 plus per week California unemployment benefit right now?
Of course. I mean, whoever kind of came up with the unemployment benefit didn't really think about like what the wages are to actually sustain a restaurant. So yeah, I mean, honestly, like some of our employees are making more not having to take the coronavirus risk with unemployment than they are, having to come in and like kind of do stuff. I think the way we're kind of offsetting that, and I know it sounds like just super contrary, is we're going to pay people more to make it kind of worth their while. And then secondly, I think it really speaks to your restaurant and like small businesses culture, because, like it is kind of like nice. I think some people could like kind of like chill and like not do anything for that time, but other people are getting antsy, right? Like to be like stuck inside and do anything that whole time period. I think people naturally want to do stuff. And, like I'll speak to Rooster Rice, right? Is that like we made a conscious decision to shut down a few weeks ago. And the reason being is that we originally thought that shelter in place would be over by like early April, early May. And we think like it could go longer. And even if it like reduces a little bit, it's going to change the way restaurants work. A long-term model that is more sustainable. And we want to like, it's kind of weird because we thought about the financial risks and how to operate with skeleton crews and all that. Pretty okay considering everything. And then one thing is like we just didn't think about like how widespread the disease could be. So like just changing like all the sneeze guards, and we'll come out with that process. So like if anyone wants to kind of like check it out, we'll show it on an Instagram and stuff like
that. Next question we have from Steve Cho. What do you think the future in contactless payments and online ordering is? Should restaurants move to this model more, especially with the social distancing mandate?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that like the very act of like sharing a pen right now, right? And like signing your credit card order is a very new thing. I think like a lot of like the long-term trend is going to go into like a completely like eloquent experience where you just pay for everything up front and then you never have to take out your wallet. So like while we're closed at Rooster and Rice, for example, we're developing an app that can kind of do that. And one thing is like, like delivery companies, people are very mixed about them because they do take away a lot of the margins, but at the same time, like that's how people are going to consume food, right? It's like kind of like Uber, Lyft versus like taxis back in the day. You're going to have to figure that out. I do think though that every restaurant will need to kind of figure out a way to kind of manage that delivery with like a little bit more of their own independent fleet, because at some top line level, it just doesn't really make sense to just have like 80% of your business be delivery. Or you have to figure out something on the back end where it becomes so cheap where you could like eat that margin and kind of keep going. Yeah.
Got it. I know a few restaurant owners that I've talked to so far. Some of them are able to survive because they've already had some infrastructure in place with the online ordering at the very least. Right. So at least a mild shift over. If not now, this would be the perfect opportunity to do so.
Yeah. So like for any investment we made in the last couple of years, I mean, restaurant owners hate delivery because it's just such a high profit margin. And also it's just like a reflection of their like craft, right? Their product, because like people like, having the food delivered straight and eating it at the temperature and timetable that you're supposed to eat it at. So to give up that part of the control and then have like someone write on Yelp later, like, oh, hey, this food was cold. That sucked. That's not their fault even. So, but that was a big consideration for us. So that's why I think a lot of our concepts were already on all the delivery platforms. Again, to begrudgingly like chefs and stuff, like they were not happy about that. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So I see we have about, 15 more people who joined the live stream in the last few minutes. So we got the late risers, join us here. So thank you guys for joining. If you guys have questions so far, feel free to pop them over to the questions tab and we'll try to get them answered in a timely manner. Next question from Adrian. Lynn, which strategies have you seen restaurants take to combat the stay-at-home orders? Locally, I've seen basics such as takeout and delivery, but I've also seen a restaurant become a bodega. What have you seen work be able to represent the brand without the sit-down experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some pretty cool stuff, right? I mean, if you're trying to order like an Instacart or Amazon Prime like delivery order, you have to order it on Monday, and then the delivery window is anywhere from like Thursday to the next Tuesday. So as a result, I've seen restaurants kind of like take over that demand and shortage of supply there by, like, hey, like Italian homemade. We're in DoorDash kitchens and they're our neighbor. For any time you order Italian homemade delivery, they have pasta sauce, like all the other things that you might need from groceries that still reflect their kind of brand and experience. I think it's like kind of important that even though like these restaurants are taking these strategies to support sales and whatnot, you still have to think about your margin. And a lot of times, like, I understand like the need to kind of get dollars in the door, but that's the same thing that kind of like causes a lot of the lack of savings in this crisis, is that like if you buy toilet paper and then you sell it to a delivery person and then you have to pay that delivery commission on top, are you really making like anything? Right. I mean, like that's kind of, I think, like something people need to like think about. Hey, we skipped one. So I'll just
to Leroy's, and this is basically the great question of what's going to happen after they remove the shelter in place. To come out and even eat after this pandemic blows over. Will the future of the restaurants be the same, and is it worth going out to festivals as food vendors?
Yeah, I think I mean, a lot of the festivals in the next 12 months seem to kind of already be canceling or at least being considered to be canceled. Mark Zuckerberg yesterday said that for Facebook as a corporation, any physical gathering of 50 or more people is going to be delayed until June 2021. So I think like that's kind of like more on the draconian side right now, but it's also somewhat likely. So festivals number one, I don't know if that's going to even happen, right? Like in the short term. So, and secondly, like even if they do, and even if they open restaurants that are dine in, it's not going to be the same, right? Everyone's going to have a mask on. There's going to be social distancing rules within your space. If a restaurant had 100 seats, it'll probably have like 30 to 40 seats going forward. So it's really going to change that dynamic. I think if you're like a fast casual, you really need to think about something that could be reheated, like someone could like kind of like take it, go eat it at home. Because I think the idea of like buying something at a festival, even eating it there, eating like at a table right next to someone, I do think like those things are kind of like going away. So I think, yeah, like a more take home, reheatable things that everyone needs to think about.
We have a similar question from Marco Chang. Restaurants have a huge cultural imprint on what it means to be alive. Ordering takeout is a way people are supporting local businesses now, but it can be perceived as a band-aid solution. What's the actual future of food and dining experiences that have not been done before?
I totally agree. One of my favorite things about restaurant investing and like people like will always be like, why are you doing that? It's so risky. You're never going to get your money out. I think in addition to like creating like an economic and business return, like, man, everyone has like the best memories at restaurants, like a date, family celebration, graduations. A lot of people have also like have tangential like experience working at a restaurant. Like, you know, like mom and dad work there, you work there as like a high school student waiting tables, you know, like there's a lot of things that like kind of like create a lot of emotion there. So what does it mean like afterward? You know, I think the only way delivery really works today is like people know if you order delivery, it could be cold, it's going to be maybe a little bit messed up. But why do people do it? Because it's super convenient and they remember like the brand from like being at the brick and mortar and being like, whoa, this like tasted really good and I felt a certain way. So even if I get that delivery order and it's a little bit worse, you know, I'm going to forgive them because I think the brand is really important. So I think going forward on the like dining and kind of like experience you get from these services, you're going to have to feel like a connection to the brand. I think Andrew Chow at Boba Guys does it. I mean, he shut down for a few weeks. He's thought of this long-term model and they reopened, I think this week, and, you know, blew out delivery orders. Before, who would buy delivery boba? You know, like boba costs like $5. You're going to pay $5 delivery fee on top. But he's created this brand and experience, and he's come out with this book, and he's all over social media. I think that's the way to kind of virtually gap that dining experience. In terms of the like actual kind of like sit down, I mean, I think everyone's kind of like figuring that part out right now. So
We have a question from one of our team members at AHN, Jimmy Lau. COVID-19 has caused a lot of uncertainty and forced lots of restaurants to close. Unfortunately, some have closed permanently. And based on your experience, is this an opportunity to enter into the food and beverage industry? What opportunities should we look for if we're interested in opening a restaurant?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's kind of, again, like easy to get like bogged down in like all the negative press that's going on. But at the same time, it kind of like resets everything and makes everyone like think differently and like outside the box. So for those that survive, you're going to see like a next level innovation in food. So I think another part about it is like commercial leases, unfortunately for the existing owners and existing landlords, they're probably going to go down as a result of kind of what's going on. So everything will cost less to kind of enter. And then for like what you should kind of look for is, I think even before you kind of like open, like I think it's more important to kind of like develop a brand and a following, and see if that brand and following can be translated into the physical space that you need. I just think there's a lot of planning that needs to happen before you actually just open. Yeah, I think we skipped the one below. Yeah.
Doesn't have a question, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For the next question, Richard Ju, do you expect any of your brands to expand given all the restaurants closures that are expected? How do you see openings and CapEx trending the next 6, 12, and 18 months?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, 2020 was our year of expansion. We literally had planned for a restaurant to be open every single month up until about like May or June. And I think what's interesting is that kind of goes back into like the very first question about balance sheet. We're gonna, like, as soon as this is over and it's somewhat normalized, we're gonna open them. I mean, that's our plan. That's what we're committed to. And like, we still think that people will go out to eat. It might just be in a different consumption vehicle or mechanism, but it's definitely going to happen. In terms of openings and CapEx trending, yeah, I mean, like if there are existing concepts that have strong balance sheets that think of this new way of delivering food in this new kind of 12-month lookout, yeah, they'll open. Everything will be cheaper, just like what Jimmy said. However, the general, I think, census is if you're not in that kind of very small, specific basket of restaurants, it's everyone's just going to be like trying to save as much cash as possible. Like managing like burn to balance sheet, and like the same thing with all these government. Like a lot of people were using it as like a means of survival. So for the lucky few that got it, they're probably just trying to figure out like how much they can lose compared to how much that loan would be. So I think like 90% are just trying to survive. So you're going to see a lot of this CapEx and openings slow down. But for the 10% that can like kind of do it, you're going to see them probably even like double up and like try to gain market share right now.
For people who don't know what CapEx stands for, like myself, what is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it means a capital expenditure. So it is literally any cash outflow that you're doing to improve your business, whether it's opening, buying new equipment, redoing a space. Same thing for your home, right? Like if you're redoing your kitchen, you would call that CapEx. But a lot of those, like as long as like nothing's like really broken, are kind of pushed out during a recession, you'll probably see like that be the majority of the trend here.
So the next question we have from Tuyet Lee: how are restaurants that are operating deal with staff issues that come up related to COVID-19? How do you stay operating when there's a lot of uncertainty in your own staff work?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like the one that like is the most challenging right now. It's like every single day, you think you figure something out for the next 3 months, and then the next day or next couple of hours changes the plan like pretty dramatically. So I think you have to like be extra into it and be extra strategic, be really up to date on the news. I'm usually not a very political person, and I've been like all over, like I download Twitter just to kind of like stay up to date with things. And in terms of like how to deal with the staff issues, I think it just speaks to culture. One thing about the PPP loans and your landlords and your staff right now is in good times, we kind of just everything we just take for granted, and I'm at fault for some of these as well, as like we don't like invest enough in those relationships, and during the good times are bad, we're like, hey landlord, can you help me out here? And you can't hear from them because they haven't heard from you right in a couple of years. So I think it's really important, and that's kind of the thing I really want to work on now and post-crisis is you got to invest so much time into like those 3 buckets when things are good, so that when times are bad, you really have someone to kind of like lean on. So yeah, I think it's more about culture on that.
And before we move on to the next question, we have a few complaints that your connection and audio is still toggling.
Oh, really?
Are you next to the router, or if you have a stronger signal within your place that you can move to? Or turn off.
Okay, let me try.
Hopefully that gets better.
How is it now? Is it okay?
It comes in and goes. It sometimes it has a laggy poppy sound, and then sometimes it comes in clear. And I think maybe it's just the Wi-Fi catching up. So we'll.
Okay, I'll close like everything. So maybe that'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
While you do that,
better
question is a really good question, especially around marketing from @1 Quan. After going through quarantine, how do you see marketing for the food industry changing? What specific strategies will be a necessity moving forward?
Yeah, I think that like pre-coronavirus, like everyone was trying to build their brand by, like building like a certain feel and atmosphere, and I think that's like really important. So like for example, like food Instagrams, right? They just wouldn't post more than a few times a week because they didn't want like the consumer to be like inundated and feel like every brand is like McDonald's where it's just like in your face the whole time. I think now it's like super important to be like posting every day, thinking of new solutions because people aren't walking by your spot mentally that you're still there. And then also because like, there's so much uncertainty about which businesses are open or not, I think like being very active and posting all the time shows people that like, hey, like I'm in my business right now. I'm going to be there. I want you to remember me whenever you need to. So I think that's going to change. And then the second thing is like, I think like, like part of food is like being a good service, right? So while people are quarantined, there's going to be a lot of like different ways to kind of like add service to it where you feel more hospitable, even if it's in your house. So a lot of the Michelin star restaurants are doing takeout meal kits and, being able to reheat it, serve it at home, make it kind of like a date night. I think, like that's a perfect example of how it's shaped.
All right. So the connection's still not as strong, and one of the suggestions is for you to just refresh it. You can pop back into the webinar for.
All right. Let me do that. Okay. All right.
Yeah. While Min's doing that, we had a few more people jump into the live stream as well. So I want to thank you guys for joining us this morning. We're about halfway through the webinar, and we are rolling through with questions from the audience for Min to answer. And I will be announcing the NOM NOM Bond probably in about 10 minutes or so for you guys. And it's a random draw. So we actually had Brian and Maggie export the names, and we did a random number generator. So I'll be announcing that soon as we wait for men to jump back on.
Okay. Good or no?
People are saying my connections aren't strong either. So maybe it's a live stream platform issue. So
okay. It's because I think when we were just doing it, us two, it was working pretty decently. But Leroy says it's better for both. So
okay. All right. We will jump into the next question. What do you think? I'm sorry, this question is from Timothy Chen. What do you think of the future for food delivery will look like? Currently, DoorDash are mostly using the same model. Is there a new delivery or partnership model that is unexplored yet?
I mean, there's a lot of different models that are being explored. Like there's like new food startups that will literally license your recipes and make the food for you. There are some that like want it like 80% done and then they'll just reheat it and add another location and like they'll own the brick and mortar, and then they'll just like finish it off. So I think the hard part about that in the ones I just mentioned is that like it really takes like a hard buyout from the chef to agree to let someone like finish their food. I think the bigger thing is that I think people will just need to like kind of think about how to deliver it themselves, because like DoorDash can't really survive on the margins that they're charging today, and then restaurants can't really survive. Or I think like price of food needs to go up where people are like comfortable paying convenience.
Got it. So moving to the next question by Kevin Ling. According to McKinsey, online food grocery delivery has only penetrated 10 to 15% of the market pre-COVID. Right now, I imagine a larger spike. But how do you think companies and consumers would continue using online delivery post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think long term, that was always going to be like a trend. Like personally, I thought maybe like half the people eating would order delivery, and like they would like what the right economics of the delivery to the food would be. And I think COVID-19 has just accelerated that. So I think even like a sit down restaurant now, it just can't survive, right? Like once it's opened up with like, like less seats. So even I think like if you have like a Michelin star restaurant that would have like 12 seats 2 times a night, and that would be the way it would like make all its money. I think like now that same restaurant, if they want to do that, maybe, but they'll need to have a delivery component in order to kind of survive. Like you have to have delivery as a part of your business. It's like, I think before it used to be kind of optional, but now it's going to be like almost a requirement.
We touched upon this kind of like a marketing question, but we have another question from Teresa Nguyen. What marketing strategies do you find effective during this time?
Like I said, I just think it's like an increase in marketing. I know it's kind of weird because like if you outsource marketing, like it's like kind of like advising you increase your marketing spend, but I do think it's important because you're not like there in front of people, or people are going outside to see your brand and being reminded by it organically. And then secondly, like the brands that are doing some creative stuff to help people like cope with the quarantine. So, again, like just remembering that we're still a services industry, and like making people feel a certain way when they get the food. I think those things will do pretty well.
Especially on a technical side, maybe and hopefully some of the platforms that do delivery are able to connect with some of the marketing systems that are out there, right? If you're running some Google ads or Facebook ads to be able to see the ROI and that those marketing dollars are effective. So, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of these companies will try to roll that out sooner than later as well. So it's something we should look out for. The next question from Lynn. Once this pandemic is over, what additional food safety or quality initiative programs will you consider implementing in your restaurants or in your food supply chain?
Yeah, we're doing that now. I mean, that's why Rooster and Rice shut down temporarily, because we're trying to think about what that looks like going forward and get out ahead of it. Bamboo Asia did a pretty good business model, is really based on density pre-crisis, and they created a at-home reheating meal kit where like there's never any contact between the food and the consumer once it's in like a sous vide reheatable bag. So I just think like being extra safe, extra cautious, not just for consumers, but for our staff, that's going to be the biggest priority for us in the next few months. So I think you need to think about that right now, because who knows how long this will be. So.
And a great question from Jason Xiao. What do you guys think of the locker model Sweetgreen's guys came up with, where people order and they deliver to these Amazon locker-like stations?
Yeah, I mean, the problem I think with the way the lockers work pre-crisis is like you really give up like any oversight as to like who's touching it, and like touching the bags and stuff. Chipotle actually does a pretty cool thing where they have like a glass off at a locker, but they still have an employee kind of like hand deliver it. So like the consumer will look like, hey, this order is mine, and an employee will kind of like go around and like kind of control like who's contacting that. But yeah, I'm not sure if that locker system will work without kind of like an extra person in today's world, but maybe once it's over, it could be a good way. Yeah.
So next question from Andy Young. Have you taken advantage of the new SBA loans, and do you think it's adequate to sustain your business, given we don't really know when the shelter in place will end and when the economy will go back to quote unquote normal?
It's the $350 billion question, I think, that everyone has been asking like every day for the past like couple weeks. I think that, so first off, I'm very candid with our degree of success on those. Out of all the entities that we applied, and I think it was like 15 entities, and we applied 4 or 5 times for both EDIL and PPP. We got two EDIL grants, 1 EDIL loan that is in process but not funded, and then we had 2 PPP loans that were supposedly accepted a few weeks ago but never got funded. I think in San Francisco, unless a community bank or an alternative lender, if you went through a major bank, you probably had the same result. I think a lot of these things for us were fine because we knew that these government loans were just not enough. 350 billion, there's no way that's going to save like all the small businesses in America. There's 30 million small businesses. It just wasn't enough money. So then the government entrusted kind of lenders to kind of, like it's like Titanic hitting the iceberg. And then they anticipated that the banks would figure out who gets to be on a lifeboat and be saved, right? So I think more lifeboats are going to come in the next week or two. But for us, we were trying to figure out a way to survive outside of that because there's so much uncertainty. It's like one of those things like, hey, I'd love to get it. It would really be helpful, but it's so out of my control. Like it's just, like a black box once it goes in there, that we wanted to control our own destiny. So instead, we're kind of like working on things that we can. So reducing our landlord costs, we're in those discussions already. Working with our vendors. We had some stores in construction, working with our contractors, things that can kind of stretch us out. And at the same time, like, as owners, at some point you got to support your own business too, right? Like I love the government to support it, but I think that's the definition of AHN is like, everyone kind of hustles and has figured out what to do, like to get to this point. So if you can support your business, this is the time to do it too. So that helped a lot.
Great. The next question from Curtis Lamb. Do you think that ghost kitchens will play a bigger role in the industry after this crisis ends?
Yeah. Like entirely. Before the crisis, I was a little hesitant on the ghost kitchen concept. We looked at Cloud Kitchens, DoorDash Kitchens, Zool, Kitchen United, just a bunch of stuff. And then we ended up doing it with DoorDash because we felt like, they own their own distribution platform. They own DoorDash. So, they have a lot of incentive to make sure that someone in their kitchens would help out. They're very helpful. They have marketing and all that. I think before, Cloud Kitchen restaurants had a low chance of success because people need to have that brick and mortar brand recognition in order to trust that delivery, kind of like worsening of food that we mentioned earlier. And now I think that, because everyone's virtual, it kind of helps them a little bit if you can like do the branding right socially.
For there are a few questions in terms of what a ghost kitchen actually is, if you can quickly explain that.
Oh yeah, sure. It's a kitchen that is designed to only do delivery or pickup. You can't like go and sit down there. It's usually like one kitchen that has 10 different restaurants in it, so that like one inefficiency of the delivery model is like an Uber Eats driver will like go to like 10 different restaurants to pick up 10 different foods. And here in this model, it's more efficient for the driver. It's theoretically less labor for the restaurant because all they're doing is delivery and pickup, and there's no like front of the house people. Yeah, yeah.
Great. So really good question coming from a different perspective from Mylan. Do you have any
Yeah.
advice for suppliers who provide products to the food service industry? For example, our company Cropsticks sells chopsticks and straws. When a restaurant takes a hit, so do many on the supply chain. How can we support our restaurant customers while trying to survive too?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because that was also a part of the reason why that we try to stay open initially for as long as possible in that first environment is we wanted a kind of like not only pay our employees but also pay our suppliers and make sure that they can kind of like survive. So for this example, if the restaurant itself can't like open or you have that reduction anyway, I think that gift card example that we're doing for NOM NOM Bond and what restaurants are doing, where they're offering a discount now for like a bulk purchase order. I think that could potentially work, especially for concepts that I think will survive. I think that's one way to kind of support. And then there was a question earlier about how restaurants should be bodegas. I think like changing that model where like where are people actually using those goods, right? It's like in their home. So if you could develop more of a consumer marketing approach, that could offset some of this blow too.
So want to give you a quick breather, Min. I wanted to go into the NOM NOM Bond and announce our winner. So for those of you guys who are currently on here, we've already done a random number generator for the drawing. What I wanted to do was be able to award you guys as attendees to award that to the person who's actually within the live stream as well. So the person who actually drew, if you're on the chat, feel free to say you're here so you can claim the winning. And then if no one's here to claim it, or the person's not here to claim it, then I'll go to the next person. And then after 3 no claims, then we'll default to a registrant who wasn't on the live stream.
Okay.
Did you get a pop-up that the event is full? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what is this?
All right. So the drawing, if Vanessa Lowe is still in the live stream, go ahead and put in the chat that you are here. I'm right there with you, Linda. I'm getting pretty hungry.
Hey, Eric, I'll actually donate 2 more because I mean, like, I just think like everything's been good, and it'll be like apologies for the technical difficulties we had. So yeah, so you can do up to 3.
Oh man, you are too generous. That is what, worth $750 worth of food, right there, right? So
yeah.
Really generous. Thank you so much, Min. Obviously, it's sponsored by you, your restaurants, and the other partners that you have within the NOM NOM Bond. So it looks like Vanessa Lowe is not here. So we're going to the next name, which is Annie Wang. I don't think there's a lag. I feel like everyone's responding to our conversation pretty on point. All right. Well, since we have 3, we're gonna move on to the next person. We got Michael Anthony. Let's see if we have Michael. I want to keep it going. Unfortunately, Jason, you can't change your name. Are sleeping right now, sleeping on $250 worth of food. All right, we're going to move on to Robin Wang.
I think the chat's pretty funny. I kind of agree. We should just call out 3 names and see who responds. Yeah.
Yeah, we're making Brian work hard for these the name generators. All right, we have Michael Chung, D Tran, and Yuli Xiao.
Oh, Yuli Xiao. She yeah, that person like pre called it.
Congratulations, Yuli. You are the first winner. So the other 2 was D Tran and Tammy Nguyen. All right, so we actually exported the list already, and we're just running the random number generator here. We got 2 other names. We got Mai Nguyen and Nathan Zhao. Nathan Zhao, we got the second winner right there. Awesome, congratulations, Nathan. The next name we have is Eric Yen. So close to my name. My middle name's actually Yen as well. So Mai is here. All right, congratulations. That's all 3 winners. I hope you guys continue to stay as we wrap up a few more questions from you guys. If you guys like this type of format, make sure to let us know so we can do more of these events for you guys within the industry. We want to thank Min for jumping on here to, walk through his experience and expertise, and then be on the lookout. And, obviously want to give a shout out to all the restaurants that have participated in this within the NOM NOM Bond, and for you guys, staying within the chat. So let's go in for the last 8 minutes here to pound out a few more questions for you guys. And then, we'll
maybe
some more.
While we were doing the random generator, I know we're kind of like running out on time. I've been trying to kind of like generalize the basic questions that people have.
Definitely.
So I think that could be maybe a more effective way. So I think a lot of people are asking about rent and like what to do, right? I mean, rent is the biggest fixed cost that people have. It's the biggest cash burn while like business is slow. I think the landlord rent thing has to be a partnership, because you got to look at, I mean, like we own some commercial buildings as well. And, like we have tenants asking us, right? And it's just a reduction of revenue. It's a reduction of GDP for everybody. So I think that, you have to kind of go in and kind of like really make like a case to kind of like justify. I think like one thing is that like, like dine-in seats, right? Like if like the 100 seats to 30 seats post-crisis, I think that we really have to kind of ask the landlord, like, hey, we're not going to be generating the revenue. Honestly, it's not even the same space initially, because we were just thinking like it was going to be a completely different environment. So it's not going to be easy. Every time we call one of our landlords, like to our call, I'm not looking forward to doing it, but it's going to take some time. So I would just like keep hounding them. You're going to get a lot of pushback, right? Like they're going to say they can't do anything and everything. I think like one thing to think about, the negotiating leverage. I mean, yes, sometimes there's personal guarantees attached, but properties go if like they're just vacant. In San Francisco, there's so like let's say like a space now is vacant for way too long, the landlords actually get taxed. So it actually makes more sense to like keep that space filled rather than enforce like this rent that's probably going to drive the business out anyway. So I think it's just like kind of like no one likes thinking about a reduction in revenue, but like all the small businesses, especially restaurants, are thinking about it already. So you got to like kind of like work toward your landlord being on that same page. I think people are also asking about the delivery app margins. I think we might have touched on that before, but delivery apps and the way they help you is kind of like this. So like up until a certain point, the revenue and the margin that they're taking, it's actually like fine. You're still like netting an okay amount that still bottom lines you to, add to your balance sheet, pay all your other things and whatnot. If delivery becomes too high of a revenue and you're paying that much commission, the amount of incremental labor and cost that you need to do actually starts to kind of like decline like this. So I think that you need to be mindful of that and use delivery today to kind of like keep it going, get revenue in the door. But you got to think about like this question about like hiring our own delivery people. That's a completely different like operational aspect of the business where you have to hire drivers, keep them busy enough, like figure out how they're doing like enough orders to justify their like cost as well. And but I do think that's important. I think like you have to kind of like do that, and everyone will have to kind of think about that. Yeah, I think do you want to take like anything else, Eric, in the last couple minutes?
I think we just had kind of a similar question around marketing, to go into more specifics from Alan. When you said outsourcing your marketing, can you be a little bit more specific with that? Are you referring to marketing firms, Instagram content managers, or like do it yourself through Google or Facebook ads?
Yeah, I mean, like kind of like all of the above. Like there's like a saying in marketing because I bet in tech marketing it's a little bit easier to measure like ROI, right? Because you could like measure like a click or a response to something. In food marketing, like honestly, like every marketing is good marketing if you can afford it. And one thing about the outsource comment is like, like restaurant owners aren't always like really good at Photoshop, right? Or really good at like creating graphic design. So for those restaurant owners that have to like outsource that skill to someone who's good at it, that's kind of what I meant by that. But in the meantime, I mean, like I do think it's really important to kind of do any and everything that you can do. Even the influencers, right? I mean, like I think like all restaurant owners can kind of speak to like you're kind of bombarded with restaurant influencers all the time to kind of like collaborate and like like kind of like have content to kind of share. I think that's important still. I mean, it's just kind of like how social media works now. So even in virtual, like we've been sending kits to people, NOM NOM Bonds to like certain of our influencer friends. So yeah.
I want to go back into the chat. I want to apologize to Mai. She asked if we could try to get all these questions onto a sheet to answer, but I think that'll be a little too much homework for you, man. So we'll go through the last remaining questions we have here. I think you've done a pretty good job in covering most of these, especially if they're within the similar realm. Let's see. Well, let's do one last question. From David Lee is the most recent one. Are the prices of the food in store the same as when you dine in? Our DoorDash prices are higher to customers and covers the cost for DoorDash, and we have no choice.
Yeah, I think I think like smaller restaurants where you have like less than 3 units and you don't have that negotiating leverage against the delivery partners. I mean, at 30% margin, I think that should just be like an expectation, right? I mean, the restaurant still needs to kind of like survive and like kind of goes into like my earlier topic is like, I hope after this, we just kind of are able to like reset and kind of divide food into like 2 buckets where it's like fast food. So if you're okay with the way they're doing stuff, like should like 20 chicken nuggets cost like $2? There's no way, right? I mean, like that's like after I see how like restaurant businesses work, like I'm like, that sounds kind of gross actually now, like thinking And then you should have like the food that's like, like freshly made and like, like not as manufactured, and you should pay for that. I mean, like I as a consumer, like I try to, like, ever since I've like been doing it, like, like pay the margin that I think kind of like equates to that. So similar with DoorDash, I the expectation for small restaurants that they have to pass some of that cost on. Hey, one fun one is like from Alex Lai. So he asked about like alcohol to go. It's pretty funny because like at least in San Francisco, they're allowing like bars to kind of stay open by like offering delivery cocktails. Alcohol sales during recessions do go up, and there's like a spike in like kind of like big brand alcohol, right? Like that people kind of recognize. I think Alex is like perfectly right in the sense, like, I think it's important to also remember like small business alcohol providers. So Alex worked at Drake's Brewery. So like if you can like order a Drake's beer or something whenever you see it, I think it would be like awesome. So
awesome, man. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much wrap up here. So I wanted to give you guys a few announcements, and thank you guys again for joining us here. If you guys haven't had a chance, in order to support some more of these, self-funded events and webinars that we host here at AHN, you guys can take a look at our Patreon to help support a lot of these events that we do host. Brian Pham just dropped the link over there if you guys get a chance to check it out, so we can continue doing these. I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of the efforts that the team here at Asian Hustle Network, it's all volunteer work, and it's coming out of our own pockets currently to help support this community and growth. But we wanted to thank you guys, and especially for you guys who enjoyed Min's insight and experience within the industry. Min, if you can drop into the chat your Instagram handle so people can follow you along your journey, for yourself, how you guys are marketing for restaurants such as Rooster Rice, your business Omakase Capital, so people can follow along with you.
All right, we'll do. Yeah. Hey, thanks for arranging this. And hey, I know it's like pretty early on a Saturday for you. So like, sacrificing your Friday night and Saturday morning for this. So, and like, oh, okay. Is it gone?
What happened? Well, it looks like Min just dropped off. Looks like he probably had a meeting or an emergency. So I just want to drop my Instagram handle as well so you guys can follow me as we continue to announce further events. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Oh, there's Min.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got cut off. But yeah, feel free to reach out on any of those like platforms, and I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as possible. I really kind of like believe in like, like us kind of like doing this together. I love kind of like Asian Hustle Network too, and kind of like what it stands for. I mean, we have some of our restaurant investors like Richard Wang on here. Stanley Chen like really helped me out. He owns a cleaning service, Berry Clean. So, anything we can kind of do to help each other, I think like that's the whole point of this whole thing. So, yeah, thanks for taking the time. And yeah, congrats on the NOM Bond winners. Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. I'll just leave this live stream going for a few minutes as people log off. If you guys wanted to go into the links and Instagram handles, so it's still there within the chat room. Your hair, Brian. I'm just kidding. You can tell I'm trying to model the same hairstyle you have. I haven't gotten a haircut. Usually this is an indicator I'm already 2 weeks a week or two past due. So I gotta hit up my barber to see if she's willing to do a private visit to get my haircut done. Unless you're asking about Brian's hair, I don't think he's really cutting his hair. He's growing it out full on. All right. Well, we're logging off. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. And Davey will have you can message Brian for more information on the Patreon. Thank you guys and have a great rest of your weekend.